Welcome everyone to After the Refresher. I am your host, Angelo Garcia III, Principal Industrial Hygienist of Future Environment Designs Training Center. Thank you for tuning in to our show today. The After the Refresher program will provide you with information and introduce you to individuals who have attended our refresher courses. During today's program, we are happy to introduce our guest today, Franco Parisi of First Priority Inspections. His website will be the uh, on the what do you call it, the comments below. And our guest has attended training out of a facility since 2016. So Franco, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, Angel.
You're welcome. So Franco, tell us a little bit about your business.
Okay, my business, I'm a home inspector, been licensed since 2011. I've been doing mainly home inspections primarily. And since 2016, when the law changed for mold, I decided to go get licensed for it and offer that service as part of my inspection business. And that's when I met Angelo here, and I've been great, meeting Angelo and having the opportunity to learn from him and be able to become a mold assessor and competent one at that through his training and his refresher classes as well. Now that since I've gotten my mold license, I've incorporated that into my inspection business, and it's 25% of my business since I've gotten licensed. Doing mold inspections. So it's been very fruitful. And I cover not only mold, and I also went to Angelo for asbestos licensing and training, and I've been doing asbestos testing on Long Island primarily. And I offer that service as well, and it helps my business. And asbestos, I do probably maybe 5% of the business, but just having the knowledge and training, I can use that service to enhance my inspection business. Which, if you're not licensed as a home inspector in mold and asbestos, you're really not supposed to be commenting on the reports about the environmental issues that you find in the house. So, being licensed and approved by the state, it allows me to make comments about the, if I find it in the home of the inspection I'm doing.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit what a home inspection is? Right, some people
Yeah.
may be actually listening to this for the first time, and they're just basically not really sure. Right, they know somebody's telling them they have to have a home inspection, but they may not really be sure why they have to have a home inspection.
Right. A home inspection is not obligatory. It's basically it's a decision homeowner makes whether they want it or not. But a home inspection is when the buyer and the seller get into an agreement to purchase a house before they sign a contract. They want to have the house evaluated and checked by a home inspector who's been trained and licensed by the state. And basically, it includes everything of the exterior of the home, interior elements, roof, structure of the house, mechanical, electrical. So an inspector would go in and evaluate all these conditions and write a report and photograph everything they find that can give the buyer a better chance of making a informed buying decision before they sign a contract. So that's
Okay.
primarily what a home inspector does.
Is there a specific reason why asbestos and mold is not included in the home inspection?
Yes, the state feels that unless you're properly trained in that, you shouldn't be really delving into environmental issues. So it's not required as part of the training when you become a home inspector. And I think it should be, but it's not part of a home inspection. If the buyer requests that they have a separate mold inspection, it can be done if you're licensed to do it. Or as a home inspector, if you're not licensed, you can recommend a mold assessor or inspector to do it, or same thing with asbestos and so on. And as well as termite. Termite inspections are again, not part of a standard inspection. They are additional if the buyer requires it. And again, you have to be licensed as a termite inspector as well. So to be able to, comment and write that in the report.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
you said environmental. So that includes if they let's say if they had an oil tank and a ground underground oil tank, that would
Yes.
also not be included in a home inspection.
No, we don't inspect oil tanks, septic tanks. We don't inspect. We should know if we know the house doesn't have general sewage, public sewage, then they have a septic or a cesspool. And we, as an inspector, we just recommend that they get that separately in the report. But yeah, we're not inspecting oil tanks in the ground. We're not inspecting septics systems, any environmental, any biohazards, mold, stuff like that.
Right.
That's not part of a standard home inspection. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, and it doesn't cover lead either.
No, and lead. Yes, it
Lead-based
does
paint
not
either.
cover lead. Yes, some clients have asked me, "Are you going to inspect for lead?" And we advise them that it's a separate inspection. If you wanted to have it, you can hire a lead inspector that's certified with the EPA, that's
Okay.
licensed with the EPA.
All right. And in addition, you also train people to become home inspectors.
Yes, I'm an instructor at Malloy University for the last 5 years. I teach the qualifying classes to become a home inspector. It takes about 140 hours of training. We have the way the state set it up. It's 5 modules. The 4 are in class studying, to pass the exam, and then the 5th module is the training with a licensed home inspector. 40 hours of that. So there's 4 modules, 25 hours each, and then the 40 in the field with the home inspector. And then you take the state test and you pass and you get licensed. You send your application in, and you become a company. You have to get insurance, liability, and errors and omissions. So you're covered.
Right. All right. So how has basically the obviously you actually kind of answered the question already, but how does getting the mold assessment license help your business?
Tremendously. I mean, again, I was involved before the requirement in 2016. I would work with remediation companies. They would, I would call them up and have them go in clients that had mold, and so I knew mold. I kind of got involved in it pretty early with other people who I was friends with who were doing mold on a regular basis. But then the license requirement changed. I said, let me go and get my license because I think that'll help my inspection business as being a mold assessor and inspector. So that's what I do. I got licensed for that. And again, it's 25% of my business now, and
Mhm.
it's an ancillary revenue. And I sometimes on given weeks when the real estate market is down, I'm still doing mold, so it
Mhm.
helps and cover expenses when a business is down on the inspection side. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be diversified, right?
Yes,
Basically, is
yes.
uh,
And when I teach at Malloy, I always tell my students that want to become inspectors, that you should look into getting your license, look into doing mold assessment, remediation, whatever they want to do. But same thing with asbestos, termite, and why pay somebody else to have that service provided? If your client wants to hire you after the initial inspection, you can go in and do the mold assessment or an asbestos testing or whatever. So
uh,
definitely.
uh, so how often do you do the classes at Molloy?
We have them on a regular basis. They go out throughout the year. It's a 6 week window, so you have 6 weeks. So it's once a week for each module. You can take multiple modules within that week. So sometimes I can be teaching 2 times a week. There's other instructors too, so they're offered all the time. So it's pretty frequent. You go on the Malloy website, and they have the courses offering. And again, it's based on attendance. How many students sign up, per session. But within every 2 months, you're going to be able to take one of the modules. And some of them multiple, times.
Okay. All right. And so in our refresher course, we had talked about basically the New York State Asbestos Survey fact sheet. And how do you think that's going to impact your business?
Well, with the asbestos, again, the requirement is that any house that's going to be remodeled, demoed, or is going to require asbestos testing. So it's good if you're licensed, like I am. I've done that a few times. I've had clients. I have one in Valley Stream. We just did recently a commercial building. He wanted to remodel, and Valley Stream required an asbestos testing, and the client called me. I went in and did sampling and found that some of the ceiling tiles had asbestos. We
Oh,
tested the
wow.
walls, we tested the floor tile,
Oh,
and
good.
they came back positive for a ceiling tile. So they had to hire a company that was licensed to remove it, a remediation company, and they
Right, right.
paid to have it removed, and then they got the permit issued. So it will impact us that way. And so there's additional opportunity for revenue for inspectors, especially with a lot of municipalities coming into play now that are requiring asbestos testing before a bathroom remodel or a kitchen remodel, uh,
Right,
so on. So before they allow the permit to be issued.
right. Yeah, so that's exactly kind of what I feel too. There's going to be that means there's going to be hopefully a lot more business for asbestos inspectors, where basically they need to be surveys need to be done, and
Right.
and it's an important protection for the occupants. It's funny that home inspections are viewed as very important to kind of give the person buying the home an idea of what he's buying, but meanwhile it doesn't cover some of the more expensive items that could
Right.
be involved with buying a home, right? If your home all of a sudden has asbestos, that means any work you do in the house, basically you may have to remove asbestos to do the work.
Correct.
If it's
Yes.
mold, basically the same kind of issues.
Yes.
The environmental issues that we talked about, that lately underground storage tanks is not it's, whether you want to call it for commercial or gas stations, but even for residential, that could be a significant cost. Uh,
Yes, the environmental impact of an oil tank leaking is very expensive. So when we do inspections, we train our inspectors to look for signs of abandoned tanks and whether they had a permit from the town to abandon it properly, certificate of abandonment. Because sometimes homeowners just left it and left the oil in there and just had converted to gas. They had a friend do the gas conversion, so
right,
you don't
right,
know what's out there. So we always train them to make sure you look and look for signs of an old oil tank. If you see the old fill valves and the old vent valve, pipes outside, or the old supply lines in the basement, we tell them to look for that stuff.
right.
Because again, that's a big impact. If it's leaking, it could be 20, 30, 40, $50,000 of,
Yeah.
cleanup, soil, cleanup and oil, removal. So
Yep.
it's expensive, but yep, environmental unfortunately is not covered in the inspection, but we do train them to, if they see something like asbestos-like, they can call it asbestos-like, and that's about it. That's all they
Right.
can really say in an inspection.
Yeah.
Really keep it simple, and then we have to train them to tell them, we recommend that you call a licensed asbestos inspector or a licensed mold inspector. Same
Right.
thing with termites. If you see termites, have it, further evaluated by an exterminator and
Right.
corrected, and so on. Same thing with lead,
Right.
right? You know,
The lead is a little easier because that's what I always talk about with the lead side, is because the in some senses the real estate agent is supposed to sit there and go, hey, this house was built 1978 or older. They have to give them the lead
right,
based paint pamphlet and
right.
sign that they told them
Yeah,
about lead.
right. The non-disclosure that, whether they know it's lead or not,
Right.
some of them sign off on it. But yeah, that they do have to disclose now also, if there's been floods and any
Yeah.
water damage and stuff like that, that they know of, and you have to, disclose it. If not, they can go after them. I think there's a 7-year look back period or something like that that they can go after them if they
Yeah,
find out.
that's true. I
Yeah,
forgot about that. You have that environmental clause now, right?
yeah,
They kind of modified what the originally was. What they had you left the deposit down like five
right. You
hundred
left
dollars,
the deposit
like
and you
that.
say, I don't know anything, and yeah,
and then
Yep.
you left
Get them
you
off
were
the
allowed
hook.
to leave $500 on the table or something.
Now you have to really disclose everything.
Right. All righty. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Is there anything you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, again, anybody who's thinking about becoming a home inspector, I always tell them to go and get these extra courses. And I've had nothing but great admiration for Angelo and his method of teaching, and his patience. And you really learn. Where I've met other assessors, and I've had to go in and reassess people's work that were trained elsewhere, and all the things they missed and things they didn't include in the remediation plan. And some of them don't even write the remediation plan. They don't write, so there's just a lot of stuff they miss. I don't know what training they're getting, but definitely, go somewhere where it's being done correctly. Because, I get called back on a lot. I'm also considered an expert witness. I've gone and testified in court on cases. I get hired by attorneys because of my background, my experience and knowledge. Not only am I a home inspector, I'm also a licensed contractor and been for over 25 years, and have 47 years of construction knowledge. And so, they call me, I go in and evaluate construction issues, mold issues, and other, issues that, need an inspection and evaluation. And I tell inspectors that the more knowledge you have, the better your business is going to be, and the more certificates and licenses you get will only enhance your business, not hurt it. So it's been really worthwhile for me to, come every year. I get to see Angela every year for asbestos, every 2 years for mold. But I don't mind going, and it's a few hours every couple of years, and definitely worth the training and the experience. And sometimes, Angela, every time I go there, I get agita because I learned something new. I'm like, oh shit! Now I got to make sure I cover myself, because people are out there and it's a litigious society. They want to sue you for everything. So I always say, cover your ass and make sure your reports are well written. And so thank you, and it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, this helps other people that are asbestos inspectors. Maybe they want to become a home inspector. Come and take the courses, and be happy to have you.
Yep. We'll basically, when we post this video online, we'll basically have links for Malloy College's home inspection thing also, and along with the links for your website, so people can find you. All right. So thank you, Franco. It's always a pleasure, and thank you for agreeing to allow me to interview you.
Yep.
All right. So you can head out.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Right. So in closing, we would like to thank Franco Parisi of First Priority Inspections for being our guest. In summation, we discussed the requirements of home inspections. I've always found it fascinating that basically it's required, and it's about, in many ways, it's providing information about the home, and not structurally sound with the home, or may cost a lot of money. But at the same time, it doesn't cover things that could actually cost a lot of money, like things like underground storage tank that basically could be leaking. It doesn't cover things like asbestos. If your house is basically, if you have your spackle joint compound in your house is asbestos, well, guess what? Every renovation, basically, you're going to have to find out if the wall is asbestos. If you know ahead of time, you now know that basically anytime you do any type of renovation, it's going to it's going to require some type of asbestos work. It may require the removal of the asbestos, and basically before you do the renovations, and that asbestos removal is not inexpensive. In our video with Abtron, basically, Abtron was a residential abatement contractor. Typically, he's dealing with work that's really more for the boiler room, which, a lot of times a home inspector may catch and say, oh, that looks like asbestos. You should get an asbestos inspection done. But that's the best you're going to get with that. They're not going to talk about that the spackle joint compound could be asbestos. And especially considering this spackle joint compound can be asbestos even today. So these are the things we were talking about in asbestos, especially the New York State asbestos fact sheet, which basically says that all buildings, no matter when they were constructed, are required to be inspected for asbestos prior to demolition, renovation, remodeling, and repair. And the municipalities should be asking for surveys anytime they're going to issue a permit. All right. So in our training library, you'll find a document that basically, if you're applying for a permit, it's a New York State fact sheet regarding permit applications. Okay. So we hope our discussion was helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in a refresher course. And until then, be safe, and thank you for watching After the Refresher.